Welcome to Trump Breaking News Network, your daily source for up-to-date news on the political scene of Donald Trump, his presidency, American politics and conspiracies. Please subscribe to receive notice of our daily updates. Also share with your friends and your social media. We encourage you to like our videos and give your comments.
This is TBNN.
Be aware how some alternative news outlets are hindering truth. We sit at one of the most important times for media ever. With the mainstream media being called fake news by the POTUS and with alternative media outlets getting so much attention from people around the world, things are changing a lot. Furthermore, almost anyone can start a media outlet these days and begin sharing their thoughts and opinions about something, all while gaining a great audience. This is extremely empowering and helps to get information out of the hands of those who have historically manipulated it. But, this also means that it's easy to jump online and start creating and distributing content without ever looking into the truth. In fact, that option has always been there, but the access is even easier. This means as users we must be discerning with what we read and consume. We always needed to be this way, to be honest, but now it goes much further. This also leads to an important fact about our time. It's time for each of us to take full responsibility for ourselves, our lives, actions, and move towards not being reliant on governance. The challenge we face is some alternative outlets are producing fake stories that relate to very real topics which are true and need further reporting, but by producing fake viral headlines, they are making the subject look entirely false after a website like Snopes debunks it. While Snopes should also not be considered a credible source due to their alliance with mainstream thinking, it doesn't mean everything they debunk is actually true. This whole process of producing false news narratives effectively makes people doubt subjects like ETs, UFOs, government cover-ups, WikiLeaks, the deep state, etc. The truth is, there are enough real alternative news stories out there to never have to make one up or produce fake stuff. So why do it? Hard work and time is all that comes to mind right now. It takes time and a team of people to produce factual content that is properly researched. On the other hand, there are topics that are not yet easy to prove, but are very much worth looking at. Like for example the ET reality. We cannot confirm with absolute certainty that a specific alien being exists, for example, but a journalist can show pictures, provide quotes from eyewitnesses, whistleblowers and so forth, and write the story in a manner that asks the reader to question and see what resonates. This is how we would produce a story with not yet verifiable facts. Sometimes we say truth is subjective, but I don't tend to agree with this. Events play out, and when they do we can color it in any way we choose. That doesn't change what played out as an event, however. You see, we have been making excuses for why our emotions, bias and so forth get in the way of seeing the world clearly. This is an ego tactic built into the human ego that keeps us from letting go of old ideas, patterns, habits and identifications. For example, we often get stuck looking at everything from a particular political slant. We don't want to go back on what we may have previously believed in the past. Then we turn around and say that's my truth, but we full well know we are coloring that with our political slant. Given this understanding, we have built Collective Evolution's media strategy to look at events for what they are. We examine as much evidence as possible and then release our stories. This doesn't mean we're perfect and never have bias, but you won't get a political position because we don't take them nor buy into them. You won't get the mainstream controlled version of a story because it cuts out many aspects of what happened in order to paint a specific picture. From us, you will get a bigger picture perspective, what we can reflect on and how we can learn and grow from what is playing out in our world. It's media that cares about truth and the viewer-conscious media. We need to identify and stop sharing. Now back to content. One of the challenges we face with the ease of making a living as a media outlet online is that sometimes websites will choose to copy and paste content from other sites or simply write content based on bogus facts because it will bring traffic, that is revenue. Not all do this in all cases, but it's important to discern and fact-check as a viewer, and of course, read the article, not just the headline. A viewer may see a headline and it may sound fake. For example, the mind control tactics used by Facebook. They know more about you than you think, but it's not. We are often simply used to seeing certain topics in the mainstream, and this would not be one of them, so it sounds more outlandish, but it is very real. The key again is, if something catches your eye as a headline, read, discern, use your intuition and do some more research if need be. Many topics can usually be verified in about 1 to 2 minutes. Looking at this article by Neon Nettle, a site that often posts false stories amongst true ones, you have Putin, Pope Francis works for Satan. The quote inside the article is backed by another website called Antonius Aquinas. This site then backs its quote to a website called Your Newswire, who does not source where the quote is from. It's easy to verify quite quickly that even if this story were somehow true, we have no way to verify it because there is no source on the quote at all. This doesn't make something fake 100% of the time, but it begins to beg the purpose of even writing stories like this. Let's take this one for example. This headline is from Your Newswire again. Clint Eastwood, Obama worst president in our history, he looted America. The claim is that Clint Eastwood made this statement about Obama, yet a simple Google search tells you that this isn't true. Despite the fact that it's not true, many people sharing this content simply base its truth on headlines. This might be the most prominent trend emerging on the internet today, and one that is spreading so much false information. Perhaps there is truth to the idea that Obama may have looted America, or that the decisions of his administration spent so much on war, and killed many innocent people, etc. But going about the topic in this manner doesn't bring credibility to it. It seems to encourage people to turn away from alternative news. Once again, clearly a subject that can be checked within moments via basic searching. In a CE podcast episode on the topic of fake news, I brought up examples like this from these two sites, and it began a public conversation about fake news with one of the founders of Your Newswire, YNW, Sean Adotabatabay. It was never my intention to challenge or damage the reputation of YNW, as the conversation on the podcast was very much neutral. It simply asked people to question. Instead, the intention was to encourage a cleaning up of the content, not just for the alternative media movement but for people in general. Why produce news and information without the proper due diligence? During the conversation I asked the question, "Me, do you agree or not agree that your website sometimes posts fake news? If so, do you knowingly do it?" The response I received was, YNW, no. Fake news to me is something that the publisher, author knowingly puts out. Now I understand that during the course of the conversation it would be easy for Sean to become defensive or upset at what was occurring. In his eyes, he felt as though his site was being called a fake news site, which isn't entirely true, and he wanted to defend their reputation. So let me be clear here. I don't believe any of the sites I have mentioned produce 100% fake news. Perhaps that is the view Snopes intends to create for them, but it was not covered this way by us. Instead, I know this site produces some stories which are false. And people share them like crazy. Does YNW know they are producing false stories? Perhaps. They didn't seem to think so. But the very answer I received above indicated that it's easier for the organization to state that their stories are not fake news because the writer doesn't take the time to research them. Hence why my passion for news and information led me to want to say something to help improve the overall site. Which I made quite clear in the podcast and our conversation. Sean, I'm with you on this. This is why I intend on holding others accountable in the same way other people have held CE accountable years ago. Some of these subjects are true, but it is meaningless and harmful to the overall movement to post stuff that is so obviously fake. And perhaps you don't have a final check system where someone can check things over. If not, add one in. Blacklist certain authors so that their content can't go straight out before being checked. If you post stories that are truthful and then a bunch that are fake, why post the fake ones? What we can do and final thoughts. Quite simply. Read content. Don't simply share it or feel like you can determine a whole story from a headline. This is important. Check into the sources of quotes, facts or other things mentioned in an article. Just because you see a link doesn't mean it's even going to a credible source. As users, it's time to take control of media by keeping them accountable. The mainstream media misleads people or covers up information as much as alternative news does sometimes. This can be a tough pill to swallow and it may not be a popular subject. In fact, I feel people may get upset at me for simply writing an article like this. But that's not on me. This is an important subject for us all to reflect on and the time has come to do it. Check out our podcast on the rise of fake news and what that actually all means. Why was the term created? How is the mainstream media using it? Is it backfiring on the MSM? Will it help to clean up out news?
This has been the Trump Breaking News Network. Please subscribe and share to stay up to date on the latest news about our president. Be informed.